30 charts in 30 minutes in Power BI. We'll go through most of the standard visuals, and we'll go through a couple more. Let's head over to Power BI and take a look. How to make bar and column charts in Power BI. We're going to go through a standard bar chart, column chart, grouped column, and stacked bar charts. Let's go over to Power BI and take a look. Let's start with a standard bar chart and standard column chart. Click on the stacked bar chart option, go under your fields, and pick a measure. We're going to use sales in this case. Make sure sales goes onto the x-axis and drag a dimension like region onto the y-axis. That's going to give you a horizontal bar chart. We can build the exact same thing as a column chart by clicking on the column option, dragging in sales, make sure sales is on the y-axis, and putting region onto the x-axis. That gives us a column chart. A stacked bar chart is very similar to a standard bar chart. We're going to click on stacked bar chart, bring sales onto the x-axis, region onto the y-axis, and we're going to bring a second dimension like category onto the legend. That gives us a stacked bar chart. Of course, we can do the same thing with a column chart. Put sales onto the y-axis, region onto the x-axis, and category onto the legend. You can switch this to a 100% stacked chart. You can switch this to a 100% stacked column chart by clicking on 100% stacked column chart. And of course, you can do the same thing with a 100% stacked bar chart. In order to build a grouped bar chart or a clustered bar chart, click on the clustered bar or clustered column. We'll choose bar in this case. We're going to drag sales onto the x-axis, region onto the y-axis, and category onto the y-axis as well. You can also drag region to legend to color by region. In order to turn this into a grouped bar chart, click this drill down, go to the next level in the hierarchy to get to region and category combo. And that's how you build bar and column charts in Power BI. How do you build line charts in Power BI? In this example, we're going to look at how to build a line chart by month and year, and then build a second line chart that's split into multiple lines by region and has a drill down from year to month. Let's head over to Power BI and take a look. In order to build a line chart, click on the line chart option. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Click on the checkbox for order date. I only want it to be year and month, not day or quarter, so I can remove quarter and I can remove day. To populate the line chart, we could bring in sales and put it on the y-axis. The line chart defaulted to be at the lowest level, so you have each year and month combo. We could bring it back up at the top by clicking this drill up button. And if you click the drill down option, that gives the end user the ability to click on a mark and drill down, and then click drill up to drill back up. Now I have a line chart just by year. I can cut this line chart by region by dragging region onto legend. That's going to give me one color for each region, and you're going to have the same effect. I can drill all the way down to the lowest level of the hierarchy by clicking this button. In order to build a line chart by month and year, we're going to need a calculation. But let's start by clicking on the line chart option and bringing sales onto the y-axis and bringing order date onto the x-axis. Let's remove quarter and remove day. We don't need that much detail. You'll see that I get each month and year combo, but if I drill down, let's see how to make sure we always keep the month and the year in the line chart. To the data pane, we're going to write a calculation for month year. The calculation is simply going to be start of month, open parentheses, and pass in your order date. If I go back to the chart, and this time use month year, drag that over order date, we can remove order date completely, and change it from the hierarchy to just the month year. Now it doesn't matter what the end user does, we always see month and year in the line chart. And that's how you build line charts in Power BI. How to build area charts in Power BI. In this example, we're going to go through an unstacked area chart, like you see above, and a stacked area chart, like you see below. Let's go over to Power BI and take a look. An unstacked area chart is essentially a line chart with an area fill. So let's click on Area Chart, open my field pane, and bring in sales onto the y-axis, in order date onto the x-axis. In this case, I only want month, so I'm going to get rid of year, quarter, and day. Let's make it bigger. I can cut this area chart by region by putting region onto the legend shelf. Now I have an unstacked area chart. A stacked area chart is built by clicking Stacked Area Chart, bring sales onto the y-axis, order date onto the x-axis. I'm only going to keep month, so let's get rid of year, quarter, and day. Make this bigger. When I drag region onto legend, we get a stacked area chart. And that's how to build area charts in Power BI. How do you build a pie chart and a donut chart in Power BI? In this example, I have a pie chart of sales by category and a donut chart of sales by category. Let's head over to Power BI and see how to do it. To build a pie chart, start by clicking the pie chart option. We're going to bring sales onto the values and category onto the legend. I can make this bigger, and we have a pie chart. To build a donut chart, you're going to click on the donut chart option, drag sales onto values, and put category onto legend. Let's make this bigger. And that's how you build a pie chart and donut chart in Power BI. How do you build a tree map in Power BI? In this example, I have category and subcategory along with sales and Treemap. Let's take a look at how to build it in Power BI. To build a tree map, we're going to click on the Treemap option. In our fields, we're going to drag in sales, put sales onto the values shelf. We only get one square. In order to split this up, we're going to drag dimensions like category onto the category shelf, and we're going to put subcategory onto details. Anything on the category shelf is going to color your tree map, and anything on the detail will continue to cut the view. If you put more than one field onto the category shelf, you're going to be able to drill down. I can drill down to the lowest level of detail. And that's how you build a tree map in Power BI. How do you build maps in Power BI? In this example, I have a heat map on top, a field map by state on the left, and a dot map on the right. Let's go over to Power BI and check out how to build this. Before you start building maps, you need to make sure one of your settings is set correctly. Click on File, Options and Settings, Options, go down to Security, and make sure under Map and Filled Visuals, Use Map and Filled Map Visuals is checked. Click OK. You may need to close Power BI and open it again for it to take effect. We'll also need to check that our field is in the right role. You can see next to state I have a world symbol. If you don't have a world symbol next to your states, go to the data pane, navigate to state. Under column tools, data category, make sure you choose state or province. You'll also need to do this with city and country. Back on the chart pane. Now we can click on the shape map option. Click on state, make sure state goes onto location, and put a measure like sales onto color saturation. That's going to give you a filled map. In order to build a point map, we're going to click on this map option. We're going to bring in city, put city on location, and we're also going to put state onto location. That's going to give us one dot for each city and state combo. You can drag in sales onto bubble size to size the dots by sales. The last map that we'll look at is a heat map. I have an option for a heat map, but it doesn't come standard with Power BI. You'll need to click on this Lisp and say Get More Visuals. You can search for heat map and add it to Power BI. Since I have it already, I'm going to click on heat map, bring sales onto value, and bring state onto location. And that gives me a heat map of sales by state. That's how you build maps in Power BI. How do you build cards and KPI cards in Power BI? In this example, I have a standard card, a multi-card, and a KPI card. Let's head over to Power BI and take a look. A card is the simplest chart to build in Tableau. Click on the card option, and we're going to choose sales and bring it onto fields. That gives us a big number with only sales. You can add as many cards as you want with different measures, like profit. If you want to include both of these measures on one card, click on the multi-card option, and we can choose profit and sales. That gives us both sales and profit in one card. The last option we'll look at is a KPI card. Click on KPI card, and we're going to start by dragging sales onto value. You'll notice nothing happens. What you need is an axis. Most of the time, you're going to build a line chart with date. Let's bring month of order date onto the trend axis. That gives us an area chart overlay over the card. You can also add a target, like a budget, onto the target option. That will color your area chart and your number based on whether you've hit the target or are under the target. And that's KPIs, cards, and big numbers in Power BI. How do you build a scatter plot in Power BI? In this example, I have sum of profit and sum of sales, and I'm showing dots for categories and regions. Let's take a look at how to build that in Power BI. First, click on the Scatterplot option, and we're going to bring two measures. In this case, I'm going to bring in sales and profit. You see that we only get one dot. Let's make it bigger and start splitting up this dot. If I bring region onto legend, it's going to give me 4 regions, 4 dots, 1 dot for each region. You can also size by a measure. Let's bring sales onto size as well. And the dot is larger the more the sales there are. You can keep splitting these dots up by bringing more dimensions, like category, onto the values shelf. The more dimensions you add to the values shelf, the more dots you get. If I add product under category and drill down to the bottom, we're going to have a lot of different dots based on all of the products available in the data. How do you build tables and matrices in Power BI? Let's take a look. In order to build a table, click the table option, and you can drag whichever columns you want. You can put region, category, subcategory, sales, and profit into the table. You can change the order by changing the order within the columns. And that's a table in Power BI. If you want to build a matrix in Power BI, click on the matrix option, and we can start by bringing in fields like category onto rows, subcategory onto rows, and region onto columns. Let's bring in a measure like sales and put sales onto values. That gives us a column for each region and a drill down for each category and subcategory. I can click on furniture to expand into the subcategories. And that's how you build tables and matrices in Power BI. How do you build a box plot, word cloud, and histogram in Power BI? These are 3 chart options that do not exist in the standard charts, so you'll need to add them. Let's head over to Power BI and take a look. In order to build a box plot, we're going to need to add a custom visual. Click on Get More Visuals, and Get More Visuals again. Search for box plot, and add it as a chart type. Once it's added, it will show up right down here. So let's click on Box and Whisker and make it a little bit bigger. Start by bringing in a measure like sales and click on the box. A box plot doesn't appear until you start bringing in dimensions. Let's bring in region. And you'll see that we get one box plot. There are 4 regions, so I have 4 dots surrounded by a box plot. I can cut this by adding category to the axis category. That's going to give us one box plot for each category. You can also add a second option under axis category 2. Now I get a box plot for each unique category and subcategory. The dots are still regions within those categories and subcategories. You can add more points to the box plot by using a different dimension on the axis. Let's use product name instead. A histogram in Power BI is a custom visual. I have the histogram option because I've added it. If you don't have that yet, click on these 3 buttons here and get more visuals. Search for histogram and add it as an option. Now that histogram is available, I can click on the histogram button and start adding in a measure like sales. Sales should go on value. To populate the histogram, let's bring in a field like product and make sure it goes onto order. Now we have a histogram showing all of the products and their sales and how they distribute. You also have some values on the side showing you a maximum, mean, and minimum. A word cloud is a custom visual in Power BI. I have it because I've added it already, but if you don't have a word cloud yet, click on Get More Visuals and Get More Visuals again. Search for word cloud, and you can add it as an option. Since I have word cloud already, I can click on word cloud and then bring in a dimension first, like category, and then bring in a value as well. Let's use sales and put it on the values. Now we have a word cloud showing higher sales as larger words, and that's how you build a word cloud in Power BI. How do you build a calendar visual and a Gantt chart in Power BI? They're both custom visuals that don't exist in Power BI by default, so let's take a look at how to build them. A calendar visual is not a standard chart type, so let's click on Get More Visuals and Get More Visuals again. We're going to search for calendar and add it here. I'm going to click on the calendar visual and start by bringing in sales. I also need to bring in a date. I'm going to use order date and make this a little bigger. In order to color this calendar, I'm going to click on the Format button, Data Colors. I'm going to do a minimum color of a light blue and a maximum color of a dark blue. And that's a calendar visual in Power BI. A Gantt chart is not a standard visual type in Power BI. If you don't have Gantt chart available, click on these 3 dots and click Get More Visuals. You're going to search for Gantt chart by XViz. I have it already, so I can click on Gantt chart. I'm going to start by adding a start date and an end date. In my case, the start date is order date. Click on order date. Let's change order date to the exact date and move it down to start date. My end date is going to be ship date. So bring ship date onto end date as the exact date. We'll split this Gantt chart with order ID. Put order ID onto task name, and we have a Gantt chart. I'm going to filter this so we can see it better. I'm going to grab order ID and just keep a couple at the top. If I hover over one of these marks, you can see that the start date is January 28th and the end date is February 3rd. I can show a duration here as well by adding a calculated field. The duration is going to be in days, so I'm going to do date diff of order date, comma, ship date, comma, day. That's going to tell me how many days there are between the order date and the ship date. I can add that duration field to the data label. And that tells me this order shipped in 14 days, this order shipped in 4 days. And that's how you build a Gantt chart in Power BI. How do you build a diverging bar chart in Power BI? In this example, I have a bar chart of profit by state, and the bars go either right or left based on the profit. Texas has a negative profit, and California has a positive profit. Let's take a look at how to build this in Power BI. A diverging bar chart is simply a bar chart with a positive and negative value. So let's bring in a bar chart, cut it by state, and bring in profit. That's going to give us a bar chart of state and profit. You can color the bars by clicking on the Format button, clicking on Bars, and then Conditional Formatting. In this case, I want the lowest value to be orange and the highest value to be blue. You can add a middle color. Let's make it white, and make sure the middle value is 0. Click OK, and I have a diverging bar chart.